Manny Diaz is on fire through his first 10 games as the Duke football head coach. Really impressive as Duke enters their second bye week of the season. Just 2 games remaining. Let's discuss that on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thanks so much for being here with us today on Friday, November 15th, 2024. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. We've got 2 episodes due up for you today. First and foremost, we'll talk a little football with our good friend Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. Later this afternoon, a basketball conversation on a fill-in-the-blank Friday that you don't want to miss as well. And you can see all of these episodes wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Please be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and written review, particularly on the Apple Podcast platform, as the algorithms really love the time that you take to type out those written reviews. I'm certainly appreciative of those as well. You can watch us each and every day on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, share it with your friends, really trying to grow our YouTube audience as basketball season is here. And it's a Duke football team that's doing really awesome things on the gridiron as well. Talking about Duke football in particular, Duke picks up a 29-19 win over NC State, snapping a 2-game losing streak. Duke had started the year with a bunch of wins in a row, stumbles against Georgia Tech, loses just a gut-wrenching one against SMU, where really you're just upset with yourself at turning the football over or forcing 6 turnovers defensively and not turning any of those into points, having the field goal blocked at the end of it, missing some chip shots that would have won it, and then Duke loses by 22 against Miami. So 6-3 on the 2-game losing streak, and this Duke team comes out and picks up a really big win against NC State. The defense forced a couple of turnovers. They held strong with the safety at the beginning of it. Every time NC State was putting together a drive, it resulted in just a field goal, not getting into the end zone, which kept Duke in it offensively. And now you look at this Duke football team with a 7-3 record, 3-3 in the ACC, and they've got an opportunity. As crazy as it sounds, Duke could win 10 football games this season. 10 football wins possible for Duke football. To put that into context, there have been 103 seasons of Duke football. Only once has Duke won 10 games in a single year. That was back in 2013. David Cutcliffe, the head coach, and Duke went 10-2 in the regular season, lost the ACC championship game against Florida State, and then played in the Chick-fil-A Bowl against Texas A&M, and Johnny Manziel lost that game as well. So losing the ACC title game against FSU, losing against Texas A&M resulted in a 10-4 record for Duke. But that's the only 10-win season for the Blue Devils. And they've got a chance to do that this year. Duke's going to be in a good spot in these last couple of games against Virginia Tech and Wake Forest coming off the bye week here. And then at 9-3 in the regular season, you qualify for a bowl game. If Duke were to win that, all of a sudden you're looking at just the second 10-win season in school history, and you're looking at 10 wins in the first year that Manny Diaz is the head coach. Super impressed with what we've seen from Coach Diaz all throughout the season. Obviously, there are rooms for improvement. We'll get into that throughout the course of today's show, but kind of looking at the last few head coaches for this Duke football team and how they fared in their first season. Steve Spurrier back in 1987 went 5-6 in year one. Taking a look at Carl Franks in 1999, a 3-8 record. Ted Roof in his first year in 2004, 2-9. Of course, Ted Roof was the interim head coach a little bit in the 2003 season, but his first full year, just a 2-9 record. David Cutcliffe, who had that 10-win season for Duke, went just 4-8 in year one, leading the Blue Devils. Fred Goldsmith in 1994, an 8-4 record. Pretty impressive there. And then it was Mike Elko back in 2022 who won the Military Bowl to pick up his 9th win. So Duke went 9-4 in year one for Mike Elko. There's a good chance Duke gets 9 wins in year one under Manny Diaz, but it's just as likely right now that Duke can find a way to get 10 wins if they are able to go out and win that bowl game, which is just so impressive. And what Manny Diaz did from day one, landing a high-profile transfer portal quarterback in Maalik Murphy. Right now, you see this football team recruiting at an all-time high within the high school ranks. The class they're working on signing is going to be very impressive when it's all said and done, and arguably the best class that Duke has ever had so far this season. Duke's got 7 wins despite some issues, right? The offense ranks 14th out of 17 ACC teams in scoring. Defensively, that's what's helped Duke win these games. Defensively, Duke is 3rd of 17 ACC teams in terms of scoring defense. And passing offense, Duke is 12 of 17. They are 15 of 17 in rushing offense. In passing defense, Duke is 1st, the best ACC defense against the pass, and against the run, Duke is 14th out of 17. So that's an area that they could certainly improve. But really impressive this first year of Mike Elko, and we're going to be able to talk a little bit more about the win over NC State, putting year one into context, again, with our good friend Josh Cox of Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast. And we'll do that with him after we take this first time out here on today's episode. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is the absolute best. It's America's #1 sports book. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Seven and 3 to start the first season under Manny Diaz. Fresh off a win over NC State, Duke owns the Triangle area in the year 2024 already with a win over the Wolfpack and UNC earlier this season. 10 games in, establishing what the Manny Diaz blueprint with Duke football is going to look like. Josh, I don't know how you're anything other than impressed with what the guy's been able to do so far.
I mean, 100%. To think that, back in June, July, when you were wondering what the offensive line was going to look like and everybody was, up in arms about that. And, to think that Duke would be 7 and 3 in the first 10 games, I think every Duke fan would have absolutely been happy with it. The road to 7 and 3 has been maybe a little bit different than what some people may have, thought it would be. And very easily, this could be 8 and 2.
Yeah,
that we're talking about. The SMU win or loss, I guess, the way Duke fans are looking at it. But it could be 8 and 2, and then 2 very winnable games, to close out the season. So yeah, Duke football is in a great spot right now for sure.
It's really exciting to see, and hopefully they're able to build off this with the final 2 games coming up on the season. No game this weekend, off week for the Duke football team. And then they've got their last home game of the season against Virginia Tech, and then Thanksgiving weekend, another in-state team taking on Wake Forest. And Duke should feel pretty good about their chances in both of those games, Josh. I mean, all of a sudden, you're talking about a 9-win football team potentially in year one.
You certainly are. And, the Virginia Tech game at the beginning of the season, I think everyone would have said that was a toss-up. Or maybe a lot of people would have said, that's a loss, for Duke. And so that's no longer the case. I believe Duke will come in, potentially favored in that game. And, it'll be interesting to see what the line is there. And then obviously going to be favored in the Wake Forest game. Wake Forest has had a disappointing season. Duke wins the Wake Forest game. They've won the state. Duke's already won the state. Even if they lose the Wake Forest game, they beat Elon, UNC, and NC State. But
Fair, yeah.
You can sweep the state with a Wake Forest win. And then at 9 and 3, I mean, you're looking at a very good bowl game. You're looking at, unprecedented, really success there in the first season from Manny Diaz. And like I said, this was a masterful job in the transfer portal and of utilizing the roster that he retained from last season. It's just been a masterclass in it for sure.
And the defense has been playing strong all season long for Duke. That was the case once again in the NC State game in particular. Duke wins the turnover battle, and they win the game by a score of 29-19. Defensively, week after week, and again, like we said, most recently in this game against NC State, on the road, NC State was fired up to be playing a team like Duke. The defense stood tall.
Oh, I mean, right out of the gate. I mean, they get the safety.
Yeah.
That defensive line was just in the backfield, creating chaos, and so you loved it. You love to see that. I mean, it's funny when you see a football score, 2-0 or 5-0 or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But that was a testament to the Duke defense, and the defense did give up some yardage, and credit C.J. Bailey. I think C.J. Bailey's got a great future ahead of him. There was a seam route or two that he hit down the middle of the field there. And so, but overall, you look at Casey Concepcion's output in this game, and it was no catches, for no yards. Now, a couple of those 5 targets were dropped by him, but once again, you have to credit Chandler Rivers, who, for all intents and purposes, he manned up on Casey the entire game and really made it difficult on their most talented receiver. I think Justin Jolie has been their best receiver this year, numbers wise, but I think we all would agree that Concepcion is their most talented receiver, and Chandler Rivers just did an incredible job on him.
NC State starts the game with, or I guess their first 4 scoring opportunities were field goals. Duke was able to get off the field on third down, holding NC State. Just 3 of 15 were the Wolfpack on third down. Another point of emphasis, because you're right, the yardage was there, but to your point, if you're only limiting them to, if you got to give up any points, you'd rather it be 3 than the touchdown, and that's exactly what this Duke defense was able to do.
Well, when you get them in third down situations, especially third down and 5 or longer, you can really pin your ears back and come after the quarterback. And if you don't get a sack, you're at least getting pressure and you're rushing a throw. The timing's off. And I think you saw that consistently there. I mean, they were able to – you just create some timing issues, I feel like, in the passing game specifically for NC State. And so – and then you have the you have the defense also doing a good job against the run. And I know the Jordan Waters kind of return of the Jordan Waters game, I'm sure there was a lot of, friendly smack talk going on there between the defense and their former teammate. But, Duke did a great job against him and against the other members of the backfield there in Raleigh. And, ultimately kind of shut that stadium up. And Carter Finley's a great place to watch football, and it gets loud, but Duke had them pretty quiet the entire game.
Yeah, which is what we love to see for sure. All right, I want to talk about the Duke side of things. I want to focus now on the offense, and I want to start with third down, because this is just an oddity, man. When you're looking at the box score, Duke wins a football game 29-19. They win by 10, and yet they were 0 for 9 on third down. I don't know that I've really seen that before. That'd take hours and hours of digging, it would feel like, Josh, that you don't convert a single third down, and yet you're still able to win the football game.
I mean, I think it would actually be difficult to find a team that didn't convert a third down and lose a football game even. Like, that's
Yeah.
Not converting one third down in a game is pretty crazy. Like,
Yeah.
that is wild. But hey, I think at the end of the day, and I know Coach Elko had the same philosophy, and Coach Diaz is the same one. Like, sometimes the numbers aren't going to make sense, right? Like, sometimes things are going to look a little bit wonky, when you're looking at a box score. But, at the end of the day, it's about who scores more points, and who, at the end of the game, which team has more points on the scoreboard than the other team. And, you really did see another good week from Maalik Murphy. You really did see, the touchdown passes that he threw, obviously were not on third down, right? They were not on third down. And so, at the end of the day, I don't know that it's anything to be alarmed by moving forward in the last 2 games plus the bowl game. I do think it was kind of just an oddity and just the way this game happened to play out. But you're right. That is a pretty crazy stat that you don't convert one third down.
Yeah, you just don't see it. You really don't see it at all. So Duke wins 29-19. Maalik Murphy has one of his most productive games through the air for this Duke team, which was great to see.
Not just through the air, Mr. Jackson.
Yeah.
His ever rushing touchdown
Yes.
from the ever speedy and willing to run Maalik Murphy, as Duke fans have obviously seen throughout the entire season, a willing runner. No, the truth is about that touchdown run, that was not easy. I
Right.
mean, it wasn't necessarily wide open. He had to make a cut and then took several hits. And I
And
do
then
love the
fortunately,
fact,
he's got a 6'5" frame, right? So that when he
correct,
is hit, the ball's across the goal line.
which maybe or maybe not, we've been talking about all season. Like, you're a big dude, just like fall forward. You're going to
Right.
get a couple of yards. And but no, I do love the fact that the official social media account for Duke football kind of took a jab at him and stuff. And I mean, I thought that was really funny. But no, you're right. Back to your original point. He had another great game through the air. His completion percentage was way up. He looked very comfortable the entire game. I thought Johnny Brewer called a great game. Play calling wise from the offensive coordinator spot. Some incredible catches. I mean, that Jordan Moore touchdown catch was
No doubt.
insane.
Yeah. Crazy.
The play call to clear out everybody, and then Samir Hagan's just wide open underneath. Once again, I just think all around it was great. Now, we couldn't run the football, which I don't know if that's a problem or if it's just the reality of what is going on currently. But 29 points is enough for this defense to win most football games.
Yeah, we'll take it. It's a win. Duke's now 7-3 on the season and looking pretty good right now. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have more Duke football conversations ahead with our good buddy Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. Lockdown Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best experience. The gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. With legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com, an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. Omaha Steaks is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, we're back with Josh Cox here on the program, kind of winding down our conversation today, talking all things Duke football as the Blue Devils are in a bye week. They've got 2 games left on the year, and what we were talking about at the very end just a moment ago, Duke's not running the football. It's you look at the start of the year, Jaquez Moore is injured. Then we see 3 straight 100-yard rushing games from Star Thomas. The passing game really wasn't there, and so it was the run game that bailed you out in some spots for Duke. But when you look at this game, Duke finishes as a team with 27 carries for 31 yards. That's 1.1 average. Pretty awful.
Yeah, it's not good. That's not going to win you many football games. Luckily, Duke's defense is as good as it is, and like I said, Maalik Murphy had another really good game throwing the football. I think also we have to talk about the special teams in this game. A little bit of a bounce back game, both for Cade Reynolds and of the punting game, and then obviously Todd Pelino,
major bounce back for Todd. Yeah.
Then that 49-yarder at the end. I mean, that sealed the game because, if you miss that, NC State has the football near midfield.
Right.
And
only needing a touchdown to tie. Yeah.
Correct. So that was major. And I love the fact that Coach Diaz showed confidence in Todd and threw him out there and he responded well, just bounced back there. So I think, that played a major role in Duke coming away with the win.
It's hard. We tried to diagnose it, I guess, just a moment ago, but continuing to talk about the run game, I don't really know what it is, Josh, when you look at this Duke, because again, there were games earlier this season where you were able to run the football. It's still the same running backs who have been getting the large majority of those carries. Not many changes on the offensive line at all this season. And yet all of a sudden, Duke's not finding success there on the ground.
Yeah, the only thing that's been different in the last 2 weeks, but Miami game, I felt like we did run the ball pretty decently well, was that Justin Pickett has been out with an injury. He should be back for the Virginia Tech game. But Micah Sahakian got his first start in the Miami game, played pretty well. Thought he played pretty well in Raleigh this past Saturday. I don't know the answer to that. I do feel like it's a little bit intriguing to me that this offensive line has done such a good job of protecting Maalik in the pocket. They really don't give up sacks. So they're a great pass protect line, but they do struggle, I feel like, just moving people off that line in run blocking. And so I don't know the answer to that, but I do think it's interesting because usually if you're a bad offensive line, you're bad, right? Like you don't run block, you don't pass block, you're just a bad line. I just think it's interesting to see that they really excel in pass protection and not so much in run blocking. And I would actually love to have a conversation maybe with a coach or like an offensive lineman about kind of how that works. I'll see if I can make that happen and report back.
No kidding. All right, so we've got Duke in the bye week now, and then like we said, 2 games left on the year. A lot of times in these bye weeks, we've already had one this season. It's a good opportunity for self-reflection for the players, for the coaches. 2 games left, a lot that you can go out there on the field and accomplish, and then knowing that you're going to get to play in a bowl game, excuse me. What are the big things right now that you would believe are being discussed just in terms of like performance? What this Duke team's doing well right now, what can improve. We just touched on one of the major ones in running the football.
Yeah, I think in this new world that we live in, I think that keeping your locker room together, when you understand that in the next 2.5 weeks, the transfer portal is going to open at the end of the regular season. Honestly, I think that's a really big deal right now. I think there's a lot of conversations going on about future plans, and you can't let those conversations about players maybe making, whatever decision they need to make for the betterment of their future. You can't let that erode into the locker room, right? And cause people not to be focused. I think that's number one. I think that's not just Duke football. I think that's every program in the country. In 3 weeks, the portal opens, and it's just the reality. So I think that's number one. I think number two for Duke is to continue to explore the willingness of Maalik Murphy to run the football. Arguably, if Maalik Murphy was a threat to run in the Georgia Tech game and in the SMU game, I think Duke is sitting here at 9-1 currently. I think in those 2 games, they were desperately needing a quarterback with some feet that could get a first down when needed, or scramble and run, for 10 yards or something on a 3rd and 8. So I think that's really key moving forward. And then, not to just belabor the point about the run game, but I think, and this is from my perspective, I've not talked to Johnny Brewer about this, but I really feel like coming to grips with the fact that this offense needs to be pass to set up the run instead of run to set up the pass. So it almost needs to be like, this is a passing offense, and we're going to catch you off guard every now and then and run the football. As opposed to, I think what they want to have happen is you obviously establish the run, and then you're able to hit them with play action. You're able to hit them with those RPOs and throw the football a little bit more. I actually think, and the reverse is actually true of this offense. This is a passing offense that can every now and then, break off a 15-yard run if it's put in the right spot, right? The timing's right, the play call is right. So I would like to see, that kind of become the thing.
Yeah. And we've seen that Duke's got the players to do that, that we've seen Star Thomas play well. Peyton Jones has had great games running the football. And then Maalik Murphy's done a fine job through the air. And it's just, hey, can we add that dynamic of running the football a little bit with Maalik Murphy and what that looks like? These wide receivers continue to get better week by week. So that's been awesome to see. And then defensively, when that defense is kind of looking in the mirror and evaluating themselves, it's kind of hard to pick one thing or, just anything really that hasn't that's been terrible.
No, I think the safeties and the secondary bounced back after a little bit of a challenging game at Miami. Some missed tackles in that game that just made the score run up, and Miami ended up covering that game, which I was shocked covering a
That was
20.5.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. They were definitely not 3 touchdowns better than Duke that day, but because of poor tackling and some some bad angles that were in the secondary. But this week, bounce back Terry Moore with the interception this week. Like I've already mentioned, Chandler, Jalen Stinson had another good game this week. So I think that's interesting, and maybe this is the Manny Diaz, Jonathan Packey defense, but there really hasn't been that one linebacker for the entire season that's like the tackle guy.
Yeah.
In the past, it's been Trey Freeman the last couple of years. And if you look back historically in Duke, there's been the Shaka Haywards, the Joe Giles Harris. They're going to get 100+ tackles on the season. It just is what it is. It's very interesting. And I guess it's the scheme, but like you've seen Alex Howard, bust out with some great numbers. You've seen Ozzie Nicholas. You've seen Trey Freeman.
Yep.
And so I think that's also interesting to see how kind of that linebacking core. Kendall Johnson's been getting some more playing time there at linebacker. And then Nick Morris, what I think unofficially is available. If they don't have to use him, I think they may be trying to preserve him on some sort of maybe a red shirt plan. I don't know that officially, but I know that he is like emergency available to play. So the linebacking cores look good. And then the D line is really, that line has done such a good job.
Yeah.
Wes Williams on one side, VJ Anthony on the other side, and then they bring in like a Michael Reese and a Ryan Smith, and you don't really lose a lot. The ends are great, and then
Aaron
interior
Hall plug
of
in
the
the
line,
middle. Yeah.
done a really good job. And so there's zero complaints about that defense, right? Just keep doing what you're doing.
All right, let's kind of wrap with this. Thinking about the Duke football team and what's left. 3 games on the season, right? When you factor in the bowl game. And let's be the most optimistic that we can, Josh, and say that Duke wins all 3. It's a 10-win season. Like that is possible for this Duke football team. And for some perspective here, there have been 103 seasons worth of Duke football, and only once has there been a 10-win team. Like that is still, this point in the year, middle of November, attainable for Duke football in Manny Diaz's first season to reach 10 wins.
And don't forget the number 1 overall ever recruiting class that's ever been signed to Duke is coming in the offseason.
Yeah.
So the momentum for Duke football could be literally at an all-time high. And it's interesting because the roster, in my opinion, was much more solidified, or I guess stable, in Elko's first season, right? You had all those older guys who stuck around. They didn't lose people. And this was just different. Diaz had to come in and like immediately hit the ground running in the portal. Had to really rely on that second portal window because, he got hired late and all that stuff. I think it's going to be very, very fun to watch Manny Diaz operate with both of those portal openings and, really able to try to retain some guys off of this roster. Will be interesting to see what some of these guys do. And then, this recruiting class to see who comes in. Bryce Davis is going to come in and he's going to contribute immediately. Bradley Gompers, knock on wood, that he actually shows up in Durham and doesn't end up in Miami or in Happy Valley. But if he shows, he's going to immediately, be a part of this. And so, I think the future is very bright. As you said, if Duke ends this season with 10 wins, that would be
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And there's an opportunity for that to happen in year 1 for Manny Diaz. It's pretty impressive. Josh, so great to see you, man. Really appreciate you taking time to tell us about the Section 17 podcast.
Yeah, for sure. We talk all things Duke football. We took a bye week this week with the team. We just take the bye week when the team does. But we'll be back this coming Tuesday morning. Every Tuesday we drop a new episode, and we talk all things Duke football. We take listener questions. We interact with people that listen quite a bit. And so you can find our work anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just search for Section 17 podcast. We're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, everywhere you listen. And then social media at Duke FB Talk on TikTok, on X, on Instagram. And then we have a growing Facebook community, JJ. We have, I think, we're approaching 3,300 people in our Facebook group. Just
Love
search
to hear
Duke
that.
Football Talk.
Yeah.
So we're kind of touching all the areas. We hit the grandparents on Facebook. We hit all the other people, but no. But yeah, we really appreciate it as you do. It's Friday.
Yes, it is
This is
Friday.
5-star Friday, man. We need some 5-star ratings and reviews for the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. If you're listening on Apple, make sure that you write a review because that helps. And then we would appreciate it as well. So yeah, the more we build the Duke community, the better.
It's awesome. Josh, we'll see you again soon. Thanks for being here.
See you, man.
All right, that's Josh Cox joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Really good stuff from him and really appreciate his perspective. Enjoy the bye week for Duke football. Duke basketball back in action tomorrow, taking on Wofford. Going to be a whole lot of fun in that one. That's going to do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you on Monday. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.